My mom had been battling stage 4 ovarian cancer for over a year, and every day had been a mix of doctor's appointments, chemo sessions, and trying to hold on to what little comfort life could still offer. Our small, peaceful home in a gated community that we'd moved into over a decade ago. She was frail but stubborn, the kind of woman who still made tea for me even after losing her hair and appetite, and she'd always prided herself on following the rules. Which is why, on the day the HOA towed her car, everything about the situation felt less like an infraction and more like a calculated betrayal. The Cara modest blue sedan had a clearly visible guest parking permit hanging from the mirror. We had even gone the extra mile to email the HOA about her situation, informing them that she would be temporarily parking in front of our house for easy access as she underwent treatments. We never received a response, but we also never expected that silence to be consent for cruelty. On the morning in question, she had just returned from a brutal 5-hour chemo infusion. I helped her into the house, tucked her into the recliner, and walked outside to grab some groceries I'd left in the car. That's when I noticed an empty space where her sedan had been. I blinked, looked around, walked the street, nothing. Confused, I checked with neighbors. Finally, someone told me they'd seen a tow truck take the car not even an hour ago. I raced to the HOA office, fuming. "Why would you tow a car that has a permit?" I demanded, slapping a copy of the email on the front desk. The receptionist shrugged, barely glancing at it. "It was parked too long," she said flatly, and some board members reported it was abandoned. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Abandoned. "That's my mother's car. She has cancer. She just got home from chemo." Still, no reaction. I demanded to speak to the HOA president, a smug man named Curtis, who seemed to delight in rules more than reason. He didn't even pretend to sympathize. "If everyone starts making exceptions," he said condescendingly, "we might as well not have rules at all." He even smiled as he said it, like it was some kind of witty mic drop. That night I had to pay nearly $500 to get her car out of the impound lot, where it had been stored like a crime scene. She was confused, in tears, and worst of all, blamed herself for parking in front of the house, even though she'd done nothing wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my laptop and typed up a letter to the HOA, demanding an apology and refund, attaching every document I had proof of her illness. The permit, the emails. Days passed, then a week, no reply. When I followed up, Curtis responded with a single sentence: "All tows were justified per community bylaws." That's when I snapped. I called my mom's attorney, actually, one of her old friends from when she worked in law before her illness forced her to retire. His name was Gerald King, a towering man with a commanding voice and courtroom presence that could make a judge nervous. I didn't just ask for help, I begged. I told him what they'd done, how they'd dismissed her health, and how smug they were in hiding behind bylaw jargon while ignoring basic human decency. He didn't hesitate. "Get me everything," he said. "Emails, permit copies, dates, names." I compiled a binder thick enough to break a toe if dropped. Then Gerald made a call to the HOA's legal rep, requesting to be added to the next meeting agenda. Curtis tried to deny it, saying only homeowners could attend. That's when Gerald reminded him that my name was on the property deed, and I was inviting him as counsel. They had no choice. For the first time, it felt like we weren't alone in this. And for the first time, they were about to be held accountable. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday evening, and by then, Gerald had prepared a presentation more precise than a courtroom brief. But he also had something more powerful than law. He had my mother's story. And when the meeting began, it wasn't legalese. He opened with it was her name, her diagnosis, and a photo of her taken the day they towed her car. Her eyes sunken, her body slouched from fatigue, a pink knit cap hiding her bald head as she tried to smile. The room went silent, and the real reckoning began, as the HOA board members shuffled uncomfortably in their stiff chairs under the fluorescent lighting of the clubhouse meeting hall. Gerald King stepped forward like a trial attorney about to open a multi-million-dollar lawsuit in front of a federal jury, not a group of retirees and HOA volunteers. The moment his deep voice filled the room, all idle chatter died. "My name is Gerald King. I'm a licensed attorney, invited by the homeowner to speak tonight regarding a series of grievous actions committed by this HOA, actions that not only lack decency, but may constitute actionable misconduct." His tone wasn't angry. It was surgical, precise. Every word landed like a gavel. He turned on the projector and clicked to the first slide. A photo of my mom, visibly ill, standing beside her car with her chemo port visible beneath her hospital gown. Murmurs filled the room. "This woman," he said, "is Margaret Green, a mother, a former attorney herself, a homeowner, a cancer patient undergoing aggressive treatment." Then he clicked again to a copy of the HOA's permit registry, showing her vehicle listed and approved, despite full compliance with parking regulations and communication from her family. He continued. Her car was forcibly towed by this HOA during a time when she was at her most vulnerably after a chemotherapy infusion. Curtis, the HOA president, cleared his throat and tried to interrupt. "Mr. King, I'll yield the floor in a moment," Gerald said, not even looking at him. "But first, I want to present the legal implications of what transpired. He clicked again, showing the bylaws. Nowhere in your documentation does it say a permitted vehicle may be towed without notice unless it's blocking emergency access or appears abandoned. Margaret's car was reported as abandoned, yet witnesses including multiple neighbors will testify it was driven daily and clearly had medical paraphernalia inside. Curtis tried to scoff. We're volunteers. We made a judgment call. And you made the wrong one, Gerald snapped, suddenly loud, one that caused emotional and financial harm to a woman fighting for her life. The room was dead silent now. Some board members avoided eye contact entirely. One older woman quietly muttered, "This is terrible," under her breath. "So, here's what we're asking for," Gerald said. "A formal apology letter from this HOA to Ms. Green, a full reimbursement for towing fees, and an amendment to the bylaws to create medical hardship parking waivers, so this never happens again. If these demands are not met within 5 business days, we will pursue further legal action for emotional distress, policy negligence, and ADA discrimination." You could hear Curtis swallow from across the room. We'd have to discuss that in executive session," he said, voice suddenly meek. "Please do," Gerald said, handing over printed copies of the demands. "But no, if nothing is done, my client is prepared to let this story be heard. And I'm not talking about small claims court. I'm talking about public exposure. Local news, social media, and every cancer advocacy group in this country will know what you did to her." As we walked out, I could feel the eyes of several residents following us, not in anger, but in admiration. One even came up quietly and whispered, "Thank you. They've done worse to others, but no one ever fights back." 3 days later, we received an email from the HOA secretary. "The board has voted to meet all your requests." Attached was a scanned, signed apology letter addressed to my mother. The next day a check arrived for $498.44, the exact cost of the tow. But more than money, they issued a new rule, compassion waiver clause, allowing medical exemption from towing with proof of treatment. My mom read the letter with tears in her eyes. "I never thought they'd say sorry," she whispered. Gerald smiled, placed his hand gently on her shoulder, and said, "They didn't do it out of kindness, they did it because someone finally told them they couldn't get away with it." From that moment, something in our neighborhood shifted. More people began showing up to meetings. More questions were asked. Curtis eventually stepped down 6 months later, replaced by someone who seemed to understand that HOA stands for Homeowners Association, not Heartless Officials Anonymous. And as for my mom, she kept fighting, kept living, and knew that at least once, in the middle of an impossible battle, she had won.